Do you want to be right or do you want to be smart? Tech leaders too often forget that we're not graded on elegance. We're not graded on how perfect the code is. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is the actual impact we deliver. And I see all the time this tension being solved in a way that gives way too much significance to the tech purity of what we do as opposed to what we want to achieve. Sorry, you can't do that. In this video, we'll talk about how you as a tech executive can help your team balance these decisions. I'll tell you some real-world examples that almost cost companies their lives. And I'll show you how you should view things and how to guide the decisions with your team. By the way, if you're new here, hi, I'm Aviv Ben-Yosef. I'm a tech executive consultant. I help tech executives just like you create teams worth leading because life's too short to lead mediocre teams. I want to start with a couple of real stories, things I've seen with my clients in the past year or so. One was this company that had looming deadlines for a few six-figure contracts, their first of the size, that were critical for the success of the company because it would need to go into raising another round right after that, and they needed that success in order to have a successful round. That criticality of everything was clear to everyone. The engineers knew it, the head of engineering knew it, the product knew it. And yet, when they realized that they had a genuine issue with the architecture that made the product not function, they spent literally weeks trying to get to the root cause of the issue to solve it correctly. Now, I agree, that was an issue that had to be solved. There was no way around it. Sooner or later, they were going to have to spend the time to debug it, find it, and correct it. However, what I realized talking to the team was that there was a one day is all it takes, workaround to just make it so this issue would not be a bottleneck for them to get to those first few contracts, something that would work around the issue and would allow the company to get that success and solve the root cause sometime in the next few months. Solely a day for something they've already invested weeks in at the cost of other things they needed to do, of course. And no one thought that we need to tell the CEO about this trade-off being possible. And the head of engineering didn't think, oh, maybe this is something that we need to consider. Only when I realized that and sort of told them, don't you think this could actually help us? Only then were they able to say, oh, yes, now that we understand that now we have this security, we can actually do that and gain the time to fix the things properly without this looming deadline that can kill the company and also means that whatever we're doing with so much stress. Again, they were looking at the right way of doing things. We need to solve this issue engineering-wise perfectly, and they realized that we have a smarter solution right now that would allow us to continue as a company. Another example would be a startup, a different one, where I saw that their chief architect had gotten into the habit of leaving literally dozens of comments on every minuscule pull request the company had, the engineering team was creating. And this was creating such a huge burden on everyone that it was making the team grind to a halt. And what were they earning from this scrutiny? Essentially nothing. What they were getting is probably a 5% improvement in, function names and not in actual critical bugs being found. This was exactly what you should have in the dictionary under nitpicking, and yet because it was coming from someone who was so experienced, so senior, and that had so much importance in the company, a lot of people didn't know how to put a stop to it. And this again was making the team work so slowly and risk real deadlines that had actual business significance just because someone wanted to talk a bit more about how big that specific file is and maybe that specific function needs to be split. Now, don't get me wrong, I come from a very, very coding obsessed background, okay? I've dined with Uncle Bob and I've seen Kent Beck. I've had both of their books signed here somewhere. I do believe in clean code and the importance of everything, but I also believe that there's no real value in doing that solely for the purity of the code if it means that I might have perfect code, but a company that's going to close or going to have to do layoffs in a couple of weeks because we're so obsessed having the perfect code that we cannot get results. So, first of all, I want to get this disclaimer out. Yes, if you solely focus on short-term stuff, you create ugly code just to have quick results and quick wins without ever balancing this, you will have a flying spaghetti monster as a code base and you're gonna find yourself in trouble. No doubt about it. But what I am saying is that, frankly, most of the good teams I work with, and if you're spending time actually listening to this sort of content, you're probably leading a good team at the end of the day. You probably don't have too many people who just are in cowboy mode, let's just deploy, no one cares, YOLO. You probably have people who are professionals, who care about what they do, and therefore in those scenarios, especially in younger startups, what I do see more is that we need to help them balance this purity that they have, this will to be professional with what the company actually needs. We don't see a lot of teams that are just slinging code without thinking about the consequences when you're talking about a good team. When I go into those teams that just don't care about the code, they usually don't approach me because they want to improve, because they care about things. They approach me because everything's on fire, nothing's working. They probably had to churn through like 3 VPs of engineering in the past 2 years. I'm assuming that's not the case for you. If you have a good team and you want to get it past mediocrity, we actually need to help them learn how to ship, how to deliver. We need to have that muscle, that habit where we get things out the door, even if it's not perfect, even if we didn't do everything precisely like we would have liked to in lab conditions, because we value creating real value and not just working on our own thing as if this was academia. So what do? You need to learn how to create balance in your team. And when you have people who really care about the craft, this should come with the sort of explanations that show why our priorities are what they are, that help people ask the right questions so we understand what trade-offs we actually have here. Don't allow people to get bitter because you're telling them we don't have the time to make this perfect, but I'll help them realize the grander picture, why this is critical. You do need to ensure that when you tell people we're working around this, but we're gonna have to get back to it, you actually get back to it. Don't just use that as an excuse and then never fix things. Talk about the ROI and about the difference that time makes, because you know that everything that we get right now probably has more value than it would have if we would release it in 2 months, right? Help your team realize the different aspects here. Help them learn how to verbalize what they want, what they need, what they think is critical in a way that makes sense for the business people as well. Because maybe, yeah, you do see something that's so critical that it makes sense to stop the work on something for a few days and fix that because it can save us so much time, because it poses a real business risk, security risk, something with compliance, whatever it might be. If you can make the real case and explain that to your product counterpart, by all means, go ahead, because that's what adults do. We talk about things not from the point of view of I think that's how we need to do stuff, but from the point of view of this is what's critical for the company, in my opinion, and here is why. 1, 2, 3. Let's have a real argument about this. Not an argument as in butting heads, but as in a debate. Let's talk about this and find the right solution, having considered all the different options. Your role as a tech executive is to help your team balance their tech mastery with what the company actually needs. This starts with, when you're hiring real senior people, having the right expectations. I always tell people we need to set expectations about what stage we're at, because if someone comes from a stabler company, bigger company, where they were, I don't know, focused solely on some pure tech stuff, 5 levels removed from actual business needs, and they move to a younger startup, oftentimes this would be a rude awakening for them. They were used to prioritize things that actually can't hold water in a startup environment, and you need to help them adjust. This is your role as a tech executive, to be the bridge between the tech part of the company and the business, ensuring that both sides understand one another. That doesn't mean that you always have to be wedged in between all conversations. Hopefully your people can speak business a bit and do some of these conversations by themselves. I need to help them get there. But still, the responsibility is yours. When there is an issue, no matter who's miscommunicating, you are responsible as well. You need to be there and help them. If we're delaying critical business needs because we're doing things the right way, when there's a workaround that could just save the company a lot of risk, you probably have the responsibility of at least giving the CEO the visibility that this workaround exists, rather than deciding internally what we're going to do, deciding for the company that doing the tech right solution is the way we're going to do it. I'm sorry, that's not what real leadership is about. Real leadership is about learning to live with these trade-offs, realizing that we cannot have things be perfect when there's actual business needs on the line. You don't need to ship junk, but you do need to know when good enough is good enough. You don't get any recognition for having the perfect code. Your code likely is not being evaluated by fellow engineers. It's being evaluated by the impact, by the results it's going to deliver for your company's customers, your clients. And this ought to be your focus. So when debating where I need to do things the right way or the smart way, I would say that really for a tech executive, those are probably the same. The problem is that for tech-focused people, the right way might not be what we would like to do in an ideal world, but it's up to you. That's why you're making the big bucks, to make the decision or to help your team realize what you ought to be doing. Oh my God, there's a bunch of noise outside. I hope no one had a car accident or something. And I hope you can pick that up in the mic. Okay, looks like someone's picking up huge trash or something. Never mind. Okay. With that out of the way, I just want to say that I do believe that if you're spending time investing in yourself, listening to something like this and learning how to do better as a tech leader, you're probably already doing quite well. And I hope that this will help you have a bit more energy in order to make the decisions you have to make, even if it's less popular with your team, because that's long-term the thing that will make your team succeed. You don't want to be just another team in the graveyard of perfect code and no real results. Thank you. If you like this, like and subscribe. It really helps me spread the word and get to more good people who want to improve. And if you have any feedback on what I just described, if you have your own horror stories about making right decisions versus the smart ones, let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to know. Ciao.